Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. We are at JL 95. I was going to say 45, but then it was like, no, add 50 more. JL 95, we've got oil pastel painting step by step. We're going to be featuring the Mungyo Oil Pastels today as we do that. We have, we've got Color Theory coming up next week, right? The next episode, branch installment of Color Theory. And then it's only a few more short episodes until our 100th with special guests.
Can you believe it?
I know. I think we should get some gilding and just roll Will in it. And then that could be, that right there would be worth an entire episode. Oh, yes. I agree.
Next week is palette knives.
Oh, it's palette knives next week? Oh, crud, I thought it was Color
That's the next.
Theory. Oh, okay, well.
You're one step ahead.
I am. I was already planning the Color Theory episode, so I'm going to have to reel that back in a little bit. All right. Well, very cool. Well, we'll get started with this. I've got a quick reminder just from, I've had several of our viewers ask about it. Jerry's is going to be sponsoring a workshop that I'm doing out at Pocosin Arts Center in Davidson, North Carolina. That is the 10th through the 14th of June, and we're actually going to film our episode live from out there. So Jerry's is going to provide the supplies. I think I might be trying to do this myself, like Blair Witch Project style. Katie's like, what?
Wait, am I supposed to be
Yeah.
going to Davidson?
No, I think I might be, yeah. It just may be like set up on a tripod and I'm going to do it. Will's going to have to teach me. I'm not a fast learner. But that will be out there, so June 10th through 14th. Their website is pocosinarts.org, and you can find out more about it. It's POCOSIN arts.org. So, all right, and we'll be out there. We'll be using Turner acrylic gouache. We'll be using Da Vinci panels, Jerry Studio mediums, and a whole lot more stuff. And doing narrative self-portraits. A whole week of fun and friendship and crazy. So, and they're gonna be stuck there with me. So that'll serve them right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and go over the products really quickly that we're gonna use for this episode, just so we've got maximum amount of time. I'm sure people are going to have questions. They always have questions about oil pastels. Now, we did do an episode on oil pastels. If you girls can find it on our giant sheet of the episodes. I forgot to see what one it was. It seems like it was last year, near the end of the year, when we did the oil pastels episode.
I had no idea they're all running together now.
Yeah. But we go over all the brands, and we talk about what's the difference between oil pastels and oil sticks, which are completely different. Oil sticks are actually just sticks of oil paint themselves with some wax in them. Oil pastels are not. They do not dry. They never dry because they're mineral oil based with wax. So, well, we'll be talking about kind of what's the difference and how you deal with them and going from there on that. So, what we've got for products today. I'm going to show the Arches oil paper first. This is a really ridiculously priced, like as in ridiculously low priced value pack. I think it's 2 sheets and then you get a third one that's free. But it's large. It's the 22 inch by 30 inch sheets, just like watercolor paper would come in. So you can actually buy this and break it down into multiple smaller pieces if you like, or you can do them large. Now, why would you want to use oil pastels on this? The reason is because this is a paper that's designed for actual oil painting. It's not gessoed, but it actually has sizing that protects the cotton itself from any of the acid in oil if you're going to be doing oil painting on this. But you might want to use solvents to thin your oil pastels, and that's where this comes in. That solvent isn't going to eat into the paper and damage it because it's actually got a protective coating on it, so that this is going to be archival and it's going to, your work's going to live long term with it if you're going to be using solvents to thin those oil pastels. Do you need solvents to thin oil pastels? Absolutely not. But if you're wanting to use them, this would be a really ideal surface for that. Now you can use you know, acrylic primed canvases, stretch canvas, canvas panels. We'll show you what it even looks like on just some of the Senso linen, where it's a clear primed linen. So you can see kind of the versatility that this medium can give you. We'll show that Senso linen when we get ready to get the pastels out. I've got a pad of the oil paper that was easier for me to kind of bring back and forth to home. We've got these. These are our extra soft oil pastels. Now, Mungyo has two different versions of this. They're both called Gallery. That can be a little bit confusing. And why that is I'm actually, to be honest, not even sure why they go with Gallery on both. But just the regular Gallery oil pastels are their student grade line. Now, there's nothing wrong with using these to do regular artwork. The difference is you can see on here, especially some of these darker ones. I'll grab this one as a good one to show this on. You can see how this has been worn away. That's a nice dark blue, but on the side, it's kind of like a lighter kind of layer. All this is just the wax bloom where that wax is migrated up to the surface. You can see when I take my fingernail, that just kind of wipes that down away to the color. Now, what can happen is if you do large work in this, that wax will slowly migrate to the surface. That can be buffed off if you're very careful, or as soon as that work is done immediately, you can put a fixative on it that's designed for oil pastels themselves, and that will help seal that and keep that from wanting to come up to the surface. So this is the same size set as the professional set that we're going to show in just a minute, but it's a significantly lower price. And both of them for oil pastels and the brands that are out there are both really priced super great, but this is less expensive than the other set. So that's that set. Then these are the Gallery oil pastels that are called the Gallery, I guess, soft oil pastels. So when you look on the website, if you don't have the link and you don't click on it through the cart, make sure that you check to make sure it is the oil pastels for sure, because the regular soft pastels just say soft pastel and these say soft oil pastel. So just verify that you're picking up the right thing. But you can see on these, even with the darker colors, like the black and stuff, there isn't that kind of cloudier version on it because they use a little bit better quality wax for it, as opposed to, probably they put some paraffins and stuff like that in with the mineral oil. This has the better quality wax that's not going to cause kind of that cloudiness. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to use the soft pastel set. This is the Office's, both of these. I've got my own from a number of sets that I've bought and put in the box when we've had them on sale. So I've got multiples. So at any time, if I'm burned through, 3 or 4 sticks, I've got extras. Keep that one out. So we'll have that. This is my brush set, and I put this on the list. I like these a lot. It's the Pastel Smoothies. These are hog bristle, so they're stiffer, but you can blend them without solvent, even with these, just by kind of putting it down and burnishing it in. They also make a soft set. I would probably, you could use them for this, but because they're a larger, more like a stencil style end to the brush, the soft set really wouldn't give you control if you're doing super fine work that you're trying to kind of soften with a little bit of solvent. Regular oil brushes will work for this. I've got 2 hog bristle brushes, especially if you're going to work with oil pastel. You don't have to work at an easel, obviously, because it's not an oil painting. I do sometimes work at an easel, and then I also sometimes work flat. The nice thing about these is it gives you that room to kind of get back away from your work to actually kind of work just a little bit of solvent in with them. Here is just an inexpensive squirrel brush, but it's got a nice point to it, so you could get that nice tight point with some solvent if you like. Let's see what the other items we have on here so I don't miss anything. just black masking tape. Any sort of artist masking tape will work for you. It's really good to tape your work down so it's not moving around, especially if you're going to be, when I did the drawings for these, I did a drawing, then used just some graphite paper to transfer them because I needed to do it very quickly. Good to tape it down so it doesn't move around on you. And then a just tin cup, palette cup to put that little bit of solvent in. And then our friend, the Chelsea Lavender Spike Oil Essence. You can use mineral spirits with this, okay? You can use turpentine with this. The biggest issue that I found, especially if you're gonna work on papers, is that with mineral spirits, it's a petroleum distillate, okay? So it kind of leaves kind of a greasy residue to me on things. I don't want that on the paper because that leaves kind of those kind of, you know how, like you spill salad oil on a white shirt and you get those kind of little spots. They're not necessarily discolored because it's a clear oil, right? But you've got a spot that's just a little bit darker on the white. It's going to do that to papers and stuff. I found that this doesn't with the Chelsea. Turpentine can depend on kind of what type of turpentine, but this is what I prefer if I'm going to use a solvent. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit. Do we have any questions, by the way, girls, so far? All right. So let's talk a little bit about, put this down. I'm going to actually take this piece of paper and put it on here because that does have a little bit of color on it. I don't want it to stick to the back of this. About application on these. All right, so this is the Senso linen, just so people can see kind of the difference between the two. And let me just go to another sheet of this. So we've got one here that we're gonna work on. Okay, let me get this opened up. Okay, now with this is just one of the easel, I guess it was, what were the easel palette boxes where you could slide them into your French easel as a drawer, a replacement drawer, and take pastels or stuff like that out. It's just easy to carry. And then if I'm ever in an emergency and need a wood palette, there's one. Words. Yeah. You can see I have some other brushes in here, but I've got them all kind of classified by color, exactly how I want them. It's a little bit different than the box, just so I know where to find what when I'm working. But so if we take, what do you think? Like a nice, let's do like a dark purple, just so they can see the difference between the two. So I've got two of the violets here. So this is the more student grade. It's still relatively soft for a student grade oil pastel, I think. It's just a little tackier, if that makes any sense. Don't you think, Katie, that's kind of the biggest difference between how the two feel? That a little bit, it feels like a paraffin wax to me, yeah. From having done sculpture with like bronze work. There's different types of waxes. Yes. And then this is the regular soft. See how much smoother that applies. It's very lipstick-like by comparison. Not as soft if you've ever used any of the Sennelier oil pastels. Not quite that soft, but also it's not coming up on the edges like the Sennelier sometimes, if you're working a little heavy-handed, can be too soft. Can you guys see? Oh yeah, you can see that there too. It has a little less kind of, with all soft pastels, you get a little bit of kind of a wax chip flip where little crumbles come off. The professional one does not do that as much. So you can see the two. It's just as easy to kind of push to blend. You can get that same kind of look between the two. I don't feel like I think that if you want to work with the student grade, it's a better bet to work on paper. It doesn't seem like this fills quite as tight and leaves as much kind of color sitting on top as the soft ones. that's kind of the difference between the two, and the difference in what using this is going to look like canvas as far as comparison to like an oil paper. Now you can even use just with regular paper. This is going to be even softer where it doesn't have, this has a little bit of texture, almost like a, it's not quite a cold press, but it's not a, it's very similar to a Fabriano soft press if you've ever used that. Okay, this is just regular computer paper. It's much waxier. You don't get as kind of a soft of glide on that. This glides really soft, but because there's no texture to it, it fills really fast. So it can be used on pretty much anything, and that's why oil pastels were so popular, is they were designed to be able to be used on glass, on wood, on stone, on any surface, because Picasso wanted to art everything. Yes, Frida?
Can you use water mixable solvents designed for use with water mixable oil paints with the oil pastels?
There aren't water mixable solvents, because that's a solvent, and water mixables don't have solvents. So they have mediums, but that's not going to work. And something to be aware of, you can use, there's some people that use linseed oil that use different drying oils to do this. That will dry eventually, but it's still, wherever you don't have that in, this is still never going to cure, okay? Really, the drying oils are bad because that can keep an area wet for a long time. I was telling Katie, actually, as I was working on the artwork last night, I had a solvent cup, and with the two sides, I didn't realize I had a little bit of amber medium in the other side, and that's a turpentine-based medium with some amber in it. Accidentally dipped the brush in a couple times and then couldn't figure out why everything was very matte and dry except for this area, and every time I would try to put more color down, it was just like I could blend in so I could work wet on wet, but you know, it's going to take a little while for that to completely dry. So it's really better to use solvent to get it to soak in, so then you can then, as soon as that dries real quick, or even you can use a hairdryer with it, you can continue to keep working on it. Real quick before we start with that, this is what a finished work looks like. Oops, you got the overhead. Finished work on a Senso linen panel, actually. This is Frida, our Facebook moderator, or our YouTube moderator.
Hi.
So we did that, that filmed live for Figure Fourth, right, for last year. So, and that's oil pastels, so with all of the Mungyo. Then this is on the Arsha's oil paper, and I chose not to really, I could have really worked this into the texture of the paper, but I kind of liked it. You can see up here with the littler dog in the background, I really kind of ground the color in and blended kind of one layer on top of the other, and that really filled the paper. But I kind of liked, with this dog, the little bit of the kind of speckly quality of the paper. So those are done with the same pastels, just on two different surfaces, those two surfaces that we showed. And with the gallery soft oil pastels. Okay? All right, so what we're gonna do is, I just took a picture of a car off of pixabay.com that I liked. And that is a artist-free source website. So let me put these brushes up here where they're kind of more out of the way. All right. So this is my car here. And then, oh, you can see it pretty well right there. Okay, and then that is just a quick drawing, you know, copied out onto the Arsha's oil paper. It's taped down. Then I just did a one layer thing with the oil pastels and used solvent to kind of blend it in well into those kind of little gaps of the texture of the paper to get it on there real nice and kind of all one color everywhere, other than a few spots in the lens there of the headlight. And then we're going to work on that in a minute. First, we're going to show you how do you get to this point, okay? So, I've got our Can you guys see that drawing well enough? Okay. Slide this kind of under here. All right, so that is all that looked like. It's just a little trace drawing, which looks actually really sad and pathetic when it's just traced on there. Like, you start getting the color on it, it's like, oh, there's the form. It just looks really cartoony and gross. Okay. So this is the color that I used. It's a dark green for just most of the car here. So all you're going to do, when you work with oil pastels, you can do one of two, well, you can do several things. This is what I like to do. I like to work on a side, and if you guys can see that, where it's ground into kind of an edge. Can you see that? It's flat there, but then it's ground into an edge, so it's giving a kind of a point. I like to work on the side with some of them and then use the point to do the drawing portion, if that makes any sense. So that you can lay down areas of color, but you're not either having to trim it away. There's people that will continually trim these, and you waste a lot of the color because it's not like a soft pastel where you can just pick that up and keep, you know, working with little broken nubs. I mean, I guess you could, but it's so sticky, it kind of creeps me out. So I like keeping the paper on them.
Hey, while you're doing that,
Yes.
Mark asks, I've seen people recommend oil pastels as a segue into oil painting. Would you recommend a specific type or technique, or just whatever you can get your hands on?
I don't know how they consider that. I mean, to be honest, Mark, I don't know. She asked if that some people recommend oil pastels as a segue into oil painting. I could see maybe oil sticks because they're regular oils, but oil pastels no, because you're not working with a drying oil. You're not working with you know, a very good round of colors. The colors are going to be very different because you can't mix these like you can, you know, a set of traditional oil paints. You can take oil pastel sticks, and if you watch the episode that we did, you can actually take chunks of them off. Remember, Katie, when we took the palette knife and chunked some off? And you can actually mix them up, and they will soften up and mix together, and you can make a whole new color with those. So oil sticks, yes, would be great to do that with. Oil pastels are very different. Oil pastels are for the person who likes to more draw, but they're getting to use color to draw, and then you can mix some on the paper, but it's more limited. So definitely check that show we did on the oil sticks, because that would definitely be more of what you're gonna, if you're really wanting to transition to real oils, because then you can actually use those with your real oils, okay? These you could, if you wanted to do mixed media, use them in conjunction with oil, but guess what? The oil painting needs to probably be dry, and you use these on at the top because these never dry. Okay, they never oxidize. They're not made with a drying oil. They're made with an oil that just always stays sticky, so that would need to be on your top surface.
How much pressure are you putting on that pastel?
As much as I need. I can, if I'm gonna push really hard here, and you can see the difference. See how much darker that is? The thing is, since I'm gonna be using solvent with this, I don't want it to be this dark because it's gonna fill that paper and then make it harder to layer more colors on, because it's kind of like soft pastel in that the more you want to be able to kind of leave room for more layers. You can layer this and kind of go back in and put colors over other colors, but it's easier to have kind of less is more for leaving yourself room to play with, if that makes any sense, Frida.
How would you frame an oil pastel? Does it need to be under glass, and do you need to use spacers?
You would definitely want to use spacers. You can put it under glass. You could, you know, the thing of Frida has had that resin spray, the fixative that Sonelia makes over the top of it. So it would not have to be done in something under glass. It depends on kind of, I think if you were going to do it on a canvas panel or board, or a canvas itself, that would lend itself better to actually framing not under glass. Paper is one of those things where paper absorbs, you know, so much kind of the humidity and stuff in the moisture, it absorbs dusts and toxins so much easier. It's probably better to just any work with paper to go ahead and put it under something with spacers, just like you would a pastel.
So with watercolors, you usually work light to dark. Do you do the same thing with this, or does it matter, or?
This isn't like that kind of a thing. Think of it kind of like coloring, guys. If you put in your kind of basic colors first. I would definitely not want to do too dark of darks and then go back in with lights, but you could, as long as it was only like 1 or 2 layers of lights that you were going to work over it. It takes some practice, and this is something where it would be good to actually just take some scrap paper of a brand that you're wanting to work on, because like I was showing a little bit ago, these perform really differently under different types of papers, and actually do some practice like that. See how well it fills the paper. See how many layers of lights you could put over dark. See how the dark works over light. And experiment to really find what's going to work best, because I can tell you what's worked on these works that I've done, but different papers play really differently. So I generally am more of the rule of just kind of color with the basic colors, in to a point kind of like this, and then really start putting on your heavier layers. You can go darker, you can go lighter, but kind of leave some lights under that light, okay?
One of our viewers is asking if she can use the Chelsea Citrus Essence Brush Cleaner instead of the Lavender Spike Oil Essence.
Yeah, you can. Those are just much weaker versions, because the lavender essence is a lot stronger, because it's meant to be a solvent where you can make varnishes and things like that with it. The brush cleaner is just a very weak version of that. So that would work perfect. Any of those brush cleaners would work and would still, break down the wax enough to be able to use it kind of to fill with. It's a good question.
You probably aren't quite as strong scenting as the spike oil. No?
They're
still pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still
Lately,
reasonably.
we found that the citrus is a little bit less perfumey, pungent. It's not quite as intense as the lavender has been to me, anyway.
Yeah,
Lately, for some reason.
I think he had reformulated it because he was having problems getting some of the fruit that went in it, and then got another source, so it's not so all one
Pungent.
fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so see how that's just kind of done like that. Now, what you can do with these, if your layers start getting too thick, is you can go back and scrape with a palette knife, with a metal palette knife. If there's areas that you want to get off, or if you've layered a couple colors and just something looks right, you can actually lift that up and then kind of fill back in over it. So that's something to, understand that you've got the option to do. All right, so we've got this color down. Let's go ahead and do the solvent so you can see what the, how this is gonna work. Okay, now this is just the, now if I'm worried about the edge, I would want to definitely use a finer brush for this. Even just this little bit smaller filbert would work. Now, pretty much any bristle, brush that's got bristles will work for this. I like filberts because you can turn them and get a good edge that you can kind of draw an outline with, but it's still got kind of, where the brushes kind of are designed to shape together to pull. Now, can you see how you can make that very smooth? Suddenly that looks like paint, doesn't it? It's nice and smooth, one color. I've laid this on slightly heavier than I did my kind of underpainting with on the other one, just so it would be a little bit easier to see on camera.
So I was looking at the chat box when you started wetting that down and just looked over to it, and the difference is amazing.
everybody's.
Or as Bridget would say, magic happening.
That's hilarious.
Hey, earlier somebody asked about solvents. Would Gamsol be a proper solvent for this, or?
There's people that use Gamsol. Gamsol is still a petroleum distillate. So work with it and just make sure that it doesn't leave kind of greasy spots on your, of any of the mineral spirits that you could use, that would definitely be the one that's going to leave the least residue, and, you know, it's the safest of all of them as far as inhalation wise, you know. So, but, you know, I would play with it before I would kind of decide, you know, whether you like the effect or not. And again, the dog painting and the thing of Frida did not have any solvent in them at all. So that's why it looks a little bit more kind of rougher and crayon-like. So you don't have to use the solvent. It just gives you a nice ability to, you know, get a smoother, kind of more detailed, tighter painterly effect. Which I don't mind it, but personally, if I was doing my own work, I would not be using the solvents, because I like the looks of it being kind of more rough and childlike. Now, I will say that I've used the student grade ones. They make a larger stick version of it. I think it's just less color choice, but I used them for a 30 by 30 inch on a 30 by 30 inch painting, and I used those as the black background and then went back over it. So I used that basically to do the fill, and then went back over it with the higher quality sticks, just to kind of keep that wax bloom from coming up and through it. And it started coming up in a few spots before I varnished the work, so I just buffed kind of the wax off, and then went ahead and varnished it.
Hey, you know how with the watercolor sticks you can dip your paintbrush in water and then onto the sticks and it's okay? Would you be able to do that with solvent in these?
You
Or would it
can.
break it down?
I was saying that with the amber medium that I put on there that had a little bit of turpentine in it,
Mhm.
that it was still wet, and I was able to use the sticks and go in, and you can see where all this black is here. You can see that it's kind of blended. That was the sticks on that damp area. So it actually started fusing it almost down immediately and making it smooth, and I just kind of enhanced it then with the brush to kind of blend a few spots that looked a little streaky.
Gotcha.
So yes, you could definitely, in fact, let's, because we'll go to this next. This is just how, this one was just done where the sticks were put on dry, and then I went back around with the solvent, okay? So that's kind of how that started from there. So we'll go to that in just a minute. Let me clean this brush out, and we'll actually, Amanda will put some solvent down, and then we'll just put the sticks right on. How about that? To see.
Yeah.
Okay. And just fire away with questions as we work.
I have a couple.
Sure.
Karen Lou wants to know if she could use stand oil.
Stand oil is a linseed oil that's already been partially thickened, okay? So that's a drying oil. I would not use that. Stand oil takes forever to dry on its own in the first place. So you're just gonna be basically drawing with sticks in something that's very, like, slow drying and takes forever. So I would definitely not recommend that. That's like, would be like using honey because it's so thick. That would be not a good idea.
Additionally, after you use the spike oil to blend with, can you use soap and water to clean your brush? Can it be washed down your sink? And can paper towels be thrown in the trash for disposal?
The soap and water, I would just use some of the lavender essence to clean it with in another little cup, because it's a solvent, so it's going to break the wax and the pigment up and get it out of your brush easily. Then you could use soap and water in the sink, but I would use the lavender essence to get the color out really easily, because otherwise the color will stick. I mean, it would work with soap and water, but it's just going to be, as long as you've already got a solvent with you, it's going to kind of help that taking forever effect otherwise, if that makes any sense. All right, did you guys see I put a little bit of down of the solvent right there? So we'll take, there's some gray in there. Let's get a little bit lighter gray. Okay, so see how that makes it very smooth and very wet? It flows really easy. It still has a little bit, because of the texture of the paper, it still has a little bit of the, oh yeah, it definitely like picks up and blooms. As opposed to, I'm gonna put this here, as opposed to this outside, that's, let me turn it so it's not, see the difference in the two? How much kind of wetter and smoother that is, and how much drier that looks. I don't know if that's something you can zoom in or not on Katie, but that's, see how much wetter and darker that is there, and then you've got this other one right there that's much drier looking. Then I can take this brush as dry, I can take that and just almost use it like paint and pick it up and move it. I mean, you could thin these and go down, you know, pretty thin. I could even take solvent and, you know, pick color up off the pastel and use it to do thinner washes too, and leave them to dry if I wanted. It's just a lot more immediate that you get that richer color straight on the paper. Okay. All right, we'll take the other one and we'll go ahead and work on that.
Mary
Yes.
would like to know how much tendency these have to smear.
It depends on whether you've kind of taught yourself to keep your hands up off your work as you're working, or whether you tend to drag your hand through it, because it will get smeary if you're a hand dragger. I will
always
say that.
end up looking like I've bruised the entire right side of my hand, like I tried to karate chop a cement brick, and I'm not at all trained for it.
With the oil pastels?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm just better about doing it, because being a lefty, I always drag my hand through everything. And so I've gotten good about keeping my hand up off the surface. But I will say I tend to get it like on the backs of my fingers for reasons that make no sense, because why that would happen there, I don't know, but
Paper towels
it
with
does.
spike oil essence on them, can those go in the trash?
They can, but you want to take those out as soon as you're done working right then and put them outside, because it's still a solvent, it's still potentially flammable. You know, you don't want to have like somebody dump hot oil into the garbage and light it on fire or something. And plus just better to get it out of the house. Okay. So we got the car. Let's see. Trying to see if I've got a little bit darker that's bluer. All right. So I'm going to come back in here. This is still a little bit damp this is the area that kind of got my solvent, and I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow so there's some, it's not just black right to that green. Now the way you hold it is going to make a big difference as to whether you smear it or not. I hold it like this, more like a pastel. Some people that hold it like this, your hand's already down there right next to your work, you're going to have more of a chance to smear. So if you can kind of learn to hold it almost more like, I guess it kind of is how I hold sculpture tools, that will help with your smearing a lot. Again, things to do to practice while using the medium the first time. I mean, the nice thing about these is you could take these and you could do plein air painting and stuff with it. You don't have to have solvents with you. You can travel by plane, you know, and stuff without having to check things or not be able to take them at all with oil pastels. So it gives you a lot more versatility than even, I guess, oil sticks probably would.
Jim was wondering if you could use some sort of alcohol instead of solvent.
You know what, I don't know. That might be, you might be able to use rubbing alcohol, but I don't know if it would break the wax down enough to make it super fluid. It would have to be probably the higher percentage of alcohol, and you definitely wouldn't want to use like denatured or something because that could discolor your paper.
Yeah.
So.
And Bridget just asked if you could lift color with the solvent like you can with watercolor.
I don't know. I mean, yes, because I did put something over this to bring it to the house, and it was glassine paper, and because there was still a little bit of damp solvent, it pulled it up. I had to kind of blend it back in with my finger on the way to the car. So yes, you could use it because it's wet to pick that color back up. Okay, you can see that the kind of line over here is a little bit drier than over here. I could really blend it in because it's still in that kind of solventy stuff that's going to take a few days to really dry. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm going to try to work on this light here a little bit. Now, obviously, my white would be my whitest white, right? So, and it's going to be similar to the paper. So, I might need to give this a wash and knock some of this down, but I'm going to just test this and see. So I can get a pretty good white right up over this that will go over that yellow. Like that, just like fit in really nice right over that yellow. Can you guys see how I'm kind of finding that line again that comes right there with that? This white has a nice edge to it still, so I'm going to go around and do this highlight in the chrome. I'm not pushing very hard because I don't want it to be bright white because it's not on the car. Can everybody see where that's going on? And you can see it now sitting on top of that color.
Mm-hmm.
And with these, you do want to, they will get like discoloration and pick up other colors. So you want to wipe the edge off with just a paper towel or even just a t-shirt, like an old t-shirt that you can throw away, just to pick the excess color up so you don't go to put it down somewhere else and deposit your color without realizing it.
I have a scrap piece of paper that I keep off to the side,
Mhm.
and I put that extra color on there, and that way if for some reason I see a color that I can use somewhere else in the picture, I use a brush with a little bit of solvent to pick it up.
That's a good
and
idea.
put it on there.
Can everybody hear that? What Frida said? Frida said that as she's working, what she'll do is wipe it off with a paper towel. So if there's a little bit of extra of that color that she wants to use somewhere else in the painting later, she can pick it up with a brush and a little solvent.
Smart.
Sorry, we're like 20 seconds behind, so I was waiting.
Color recycling, that's okay.
to hear.
Color recycling. Oh, I just figured it wouldn't hurt for me to say it again. How many people have tried like real professional oil pastels before? That's something I'm kind of curious about because most people have only ever tried the kids ones. It's very liberating when you go back and actually do the kids ones, I think, or just any pastel when you haven't used them in forever since you were younger or haven't used anything but the kind of the kids version, the student version, to see that you can actually do some decent work with it.
Senneliers go on like butter.
Yes.
Like butter.
Like butter. It's like drawing with lipstick. It's great.
Do you ever sharpen your pastels? If so, what kind? I mean, what ways?
You could use a knife and do it, but I just keep rotating it. And like I said, when I do large color patches, I always do only one side so it keeps a sharp edge for that color if I need it for a different side.
If you have latex gloves or plastic gloves or whatever on, I have found that you can use the warmth of your hand to
Oh,
sort
that's
of
smart.
press the sides.
Mm,
They're very creamy, so they anything you kind of rub them against
Yeah.
will.
But don't do it barehanded. That's
no.
No.
These don't have the same issue as like acrylics, where if you order them and it's freezing outside, they won't perform.
No, this isn't,
That's what
these are, she asked if like acrylics, you don't want to, you don't want to order acrylics when it's freezing out because it can damage the paint potentially permanently. With these, no, it's not going to be an issue. They're just a wax stick. It's not going to damage them at the molecular level. Going around and knocking this yellow back. It was too bright. Just keep firing away at the questions. I'm sorry if I'm kind of leaning
Can you
over
use
this.
workable fixative with it?
No, it's not workable fixative. Only she asked if you can use workable fixative with this. Workable fixative just kind of adheres dust down, okay? That's why you use it with graphite and charcoal and things like that. This is not dust. This is pigment. And it's pigment that never dries. So workable fixative is not going to do anything to help it, adhere and stick any better and keep it from coming up. You just need to practice some techniques where you're not kind of putting your hand down and getting in the way where you're going to smear it.
Should have brought you over a leaning bridge.
I don't need it. It's more the being closer to the work so I can get the angle and how I'm working.
So what did you use, like the picture of the dogs?
Mhm.
Did you Slaybar them or?
No, because that's not what you want to do with that. It's the Sennelier, I think it's D'Artagnan Oil Pastel
Specifically
fixative
for oil pastel.
for oil pastels specifically. It needs to be for that only. And it's resin based, so it makes it where it gives it good protection and seals it. Somebody was asking me once with that big painting if it was, if that really sealed it, if you were still going to be able to rub it or whatever. And I put my hand on it and went, and everybody's like, ah!
They go,
And I was like, nope, see? All right, you can see how this is dry. This part was done with solvent. So that's a little more crayon-y looking than the other part, which that's okay. If I don't like that look, I can very carefully go back over it with some solvent while I work. Trying to kind of bring the color up on the outside to what the
those greens are so pretty.
It's not quite the color of the green of the car because it's like a British green.
No, but I like it.
I know, I do too.
Artistic license.
That's right. I thought about making it blue because I thought that would have been cute, but I decided no because that was a pretty green. And we all know how Katie feels about greens and teals. Yes. Okay. All right. Any other questions that people have while we're working on this?
Did you talk about whether or not any solvent will work?
We talked about how you can use mineral spirits. Some people do. You can use the spike lavender essence or regular spike oil from other companies. You could use even turpentine if you wanted. I would test it first with all of those to make sure that it's going to evaporate out of your paper. Take your paper and do like a splash test with it first, okay? Put it on there and make sure that without the color, and make sure that that's fully going to evaporate and disappear and it's not going to leave any color residue or kind of a an oily mark, okay? And my fear is just from having painted with, now I didn't use Gamsol because I don't even know if there was Gamsol at the time when I was in college. It was just regular odorless mineral spirits. That was very oily and it left like residue and rags and stuff really bad. So even after it was dry. So I just because of being used to that, have not used the odorless mineral spirits, but I would imagine that the Gamsol probably works pretty well.
Your paper looks like a French fry bag, it's probably a bad thing.
Yes. Exactly. And that's just, you know, what my fear always is, that it could potentially look like. Now with this, I'm just layering some color in, and then I'll go back over it really crisp with whites to kind of pull out the highlight, but there has to be some kind of back lighting for it first here. And fingernails actually will scrape excess off too if they're long enough. All right, let's see. Any other questions anybody's got? I know we've got a little bit longer. We'll keep going until it's time.
General reminder that we do provide the supply list.
Oh, yeah. So anytime you are watching the show, usually at the beginning, but it's there. You guys pin it at the top, right?
In the description of the video.
There is either a link where you can click on that in the description of the video, or if you just see what the episode number is, which this one is JL95, you can go to jerrysartorama.com. You can type in JL95. That will pop up the entire list of supplies so that you can click on them from there if there's something you want to look at, if there's something you're interested in buying or researching or anything. That we make it available so it's easy to find everything to kind of get a better look at it.
What color yellow is that?
This particular light one, it's pale yellow. I was going to say it in German, but I decided I was going to wreck it if I did, so.
Would you consider this type of color scheme to be complementary?
No. Because you've got, I mean, what I could do is do like a dual complementary color. I've got the red and green, and then I could put in some blue and make this more of a yellow-orange, right? Which you don't have to have. You know, it'd be a specific color scheme if you don't want to. There wasn't a planned thought to it like there was with the dogs.
Yeah. Could you use these on acrylic prime canvas?
Yes.
I thought so.
It would actually probably be better than oil prime canvas. Because my fear would be oil prime canvas, it might kind of come unstuck over time if it gets kind of moved around. Since this never really oxidizes, at least this would grip the acrylic really well. Alright, I'm going to take a little solvent and see what this does in a couple areas just to smooth the color out.
You might have said this, but I was answering questions. Does it ever fully dry? Or
No.
can you put something on it to help it fully dry?
No, it does not. Oil pastels do not fully dry. Oil sticks, which are made of oil paint, will fully dry because they've got a drying oil in them. These do not have a drying oil. A drying oil is something like linseed or poppy or safflower or something like that. These are made usually with mineral oil or mineral wax. Okay, these are not going to dry. They're just, it's not a component that does, like, if you've ever, oh, I just about put that in my coffee. That would have been delicious.
Don't drink the peanut butter.
No. If you've ever had, like, I don't know, it just isn't going to dry. Mineral oil and stuff like that doesn't. It might wear off your hands or whatever, but it's not designed to dry.
How was the light green applied on this piece?
The light green, just like this. Here, let me get the color off.
That's how Amy sharpens a pastel.
Now I'm just getting some green off of it, the solvent.
Lies.
On her stomach.
And can you use oil pastels with oil-based colored pencils like polychromos?
You could. You would need to put these over the very top because if you use them with you use these with actually oil-based colored pencils, if they could be used in conjunction with each other, yes, but this still needs to be on top. Okay, and you need to realize though that this has mineral oil in it. Depending on what your paper is, you want to test that, do a little test scribbles, and then put this over it and then see what happens. The mineral oil might slowly kind of ooze out of it and it might discolor it. So, you know, in theory it should work fine together, but I would definitely test it before doing like final pieces of work that you're trying to sell or get in galleries. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any other questions? We're getting close to the end. Amanda says no questions.
No questions here.
All right. Well, next week we are working with palette knives. And just kind of some little tips and tricks. And I'm going to be using acrylics for that, but I think anything we do, you should be able to kind of see the techniques and apply it to oil paints because it's clearly, you know, applicable. I wish they could see Frida.
There are a couple questions left, but I think that you should come back to the comments and answer them.
Okay, well, you're on Facebook. You can ask them real quick if they're short ones. No? Okay. That's fine. They're not short ones. All right. That's fine. Yes, I will come back within, I need to get through the rest of the watercolor runs from last week, but then I'll go back into this one within the next week and answer questions. And if it's something more pressing, they can always, you know, like they want to buy these and it's a question they absolutely have to know before they do, they can always private message me too. So, and that's, you can, I guess we'll just go ahead and close it up here. You can, there's lots of different ways to keep caught up on Jerry's stuff. You can keep caught up with me on either of my two Facebook pages, Amy Gardner Dean or Crazy Dane Studios, artist Amy Gardner Dean. We've got YouTube. Our YouTube channel has all sorts of cool stuff. Mixed Media Mondays with Ophelia. It's got, Mike's been doing what, some prove-its lately, Katie?
Prove-its, we've got some new stuff coming out, some art for relaxation, Wikipedia Mondays, lots of stuff in the works.
Lots of stuff in the works, and Mike and Ophelia are both back on there again. So if you want to go to our YouTube channel and you can like it, you can actually sign up for alerts when new videos are posted, so then you'll be in the know and you'll never miss them. You can, even another cool thing to do, whether you want to submit it or not, you could at least see what the results were from last year, because there were freaking spectacular. Our Jerry's Artorama Self-Portrait Contest.
So good.
It's so good, and it's going to be in April when the...
April 15th, I believe, is when voting starts.
When
It has to be
voting
before
starts,
that.
so it's got to be sent in before that. So check the website, jerrysartorama.com. They just...
put in,
Is it self-portrait?
I think self-portrait, yeah. There's
Okay.
a couple ones, something about that, anything in the third part takes to it. but
Yeah, just put in the
self-portrait.
keyword self-portrait and it should take you to the page. But that's fantastic, and the viewers, even over the last couple of years, are just, it's some pretty amazing stuff.
They're
Really
good.
amazing, really creative. And the thing is, we get thousands of them, and we get, I mean, if you cut it roughly in half, there's still like half of them that are so stinking amazing that you're just like, we can only pick so many. So check those out. And I guess we'll just be back here for jail 26 or jail.
Ooh,
I'm going
26.
backwards. Yes, 96 next week with palette knives. So, all right. Well, I will get this caught up. I've almost got the colored pencil done at home. So, and I got to get the watercolor. But if you're a member of our Jerry's Live Facebook private group, you'll see those when I post them in there. If you're not a member and you're curious kind of what all the excitement's about, definitely join the group because it's lots of fun. People post lots of cool artwork. They do all sorts of cool chatting. It's an awesome group. So, all right. Well, you guys have a good one. Give Oil Pastels a try. They're awesome and fun. And we will see you next week. Take care. I thought you were going to say bye, Felicia.
Felicia.